Despite being one of Nintendo's longest-running franchises and being almost 45 years old, Donkey Kong has not spent a lot of time in the company's direct hands. After Nintendo created the original trilogy for arcades in the NES with Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3, the company kind of just gave it over to Rare in the 90s, and Rare reinvented the franchise completely. It went from this arcade game, which is really what it was at its core, and it became this 2D platformer. And Rare's games kind of defined what the series would be for the next 20 plus years. Donkey Kong Country, those games are still very, very beloved by people. I haven't played them all. I'm kind of working through them right now. I've actually been streaming Donkey Kong Country on my streams on Saturday nights. But those games are still considered some of the best platformers on the SNES. For some people, even some of the best platformers ever. They're very, very beloved. And then, unfortunately, Rare got sold to Microsoft at the beginning of the millennium. And so Nintendo eventually brought back, after a bit of a hiatus, Nintendo brought back Donkey Kong in-house for Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, which was, from what I hear, a good game. But that was a very short-lived experience because very soon after, Nintendo once again passed it off to another studio, in this case, Retro Studios, who was at the time known for making the Metroid Prime games. Retro Studios created Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and those are some of the best 2D platformers I have ever played. Probably some of the best 2D platformers of all time. Specifically, I would say Tropical Freeze is the best 2D platformer of all time. The level design from both a gameplay and a visual perspective is so amazing in that franchise. All the visual elements are sewn together so perfectly. The visuals are amazing for the platforms that those games are on, but it's also just how interconnected everything is. All of the platforms in the game are contextualized in the environment. It's done in a really, really good way. But also the difficulty in those games, especially Tropical Freeze, is such a perfect balance. It's incredible. It's challenging, but it never once feels unfair. It's a game where I never felt frustrated. The entire time I played it, I was never frustrated that I couldn't beat a certain part of the level. It was always rewarding and entertaining to do. Even if I did fail a few times, it never felt like it was the game's fault. It always felt like it was on me, and I just had to try again. And it wasn't overly hard. It just had some expectations. It's perfect. It's a nearly perfect 2D platformer, and if you haven't played it, you really have to. But you may have noticed that everything I've mentioned so far are 2D games. And yeah, despite its age and the fact that we're in 2025 at this point, it's been a long time since 3D games were a thing. Donkey Kong hasn't really done a lot in the third dimension. There was one game, though, before Rare was sold to Microsoft, shortly before. They made Donkey Kong 64 for the Nintendo 64. And, I haven't played that one either, but I've heard it's a little bit mixed. People seem to believe that there's a good core inside of that game, but it's really, really bloated, and collecting everything is really tiresome. So fully completing that game is very annoying. But the core of the game is pretty good, and it's a fine experience. But maybe those mixed results are kind of why Nintendo has been afraid to transition this franchise into 3D again. But finally, after all of that time, in 2025, we got this. Donkey Kong Bonanza was the closer for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct back on April 2nd, and it looked fantastic. For this one, Nintendo brought Donkey Kong once again in-house. In fact, this game was made by the same team as Super Mario Odyssey, or at least part of it. Super Mario Odyssey had two main directors, and this is directed by Kento Motokura, which is one of the directors for Super Mario Odyssey. So there's a big pedigree behind this one, but you have to wonder, can Nintendo bring that magic of Super Mario Odyssey, which was my favorite Mario game ever, can that be brought into Donkey Kong? Well, I'm happy to report not only did they bring it, they brought even more of it. From the beginning, it's pretty easy to tell that Donkey Kong Bonanza is very much modeled after Super Mario Odyssey. Like the entire structure of the game is very, very similar. It's not an open world game, but it is a sandbox game. You have all of these worlds that to travel to, and they're very large, very open, and you can kind of explore all of it and find all kinds of secrets spread throughout. In Super Mario Odyssey, you had moons. Here you have bananium gems, and also things like fossils, which you had the purple coins in Super Mario Odyssey. So you start very quickly seeing these equivalents between Donkey Kong Bonanza and Super Mario Odyssey. So yeah, the structure is very similar, and that's not a bad thing. Again, I loved Super Mario Odyssey. The way that it was designed, everything about that game was fantastic. The part that people had a little bit of problems with was completing the game 100% was a little repetitive because of the way some of the moons were collected wasn't super interesting. And I would say that was addressed here too. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza really does fix some of the problems with the way you collect some of these extra moons or bananas in this case that aren't mandatory. So it's always fun, you know. Like the entire game is very, very fun. That fun element in Donkey Kong Bonanza though is underpinned by one major change from Super Mario Odyssey. In Odyssey, all we really do is platforming and exploration. You're going around these worlds, you're walking around them, and you're finding all these nooks and crannies and all of that. But all of the worlds are just the way they are. Like you explore them, but they're not really something that you can change. Donkey Kong Bonanza really emphasizes the strength of Donkey Kong because you can smash pretty much everything in this game. Like the entire world is destructible, pretty much. There's a base structure to all the levels that you can smash through, so the game can still be playable. But so much of this world is destructible by just punching. You can punch and punch and punch through everything, and it's so much fun every single time. That this is a problem that I had. When the game was shown off, they kept emphasizing the destruction and the punching everything, and how flexible and I guess the worlds were. And I was worried that like, is that it? Like, is this just like a sandbox game and you would just punch everything? I really thought that wouldn't be very fun. It got repetitive, but it never does. Like it never gets old to punch things in Donkey Kong Bonanza. It is so much fun to destroy everything around you. And it's not, I think big part of that is the way that it feels to destroy everything. You punch, every part of the world is made with a different material or different materials. There's all kinds of materials in this game. There's mud, there's sand, there's stone, there's concrete, there's metal, which is actually indestructible. And not only are they harder to destroy in the game, in the context of the game's world, but you really feel how it's harder to destroy. Like the game is so tactile, if that makes any sense. Like when you're punching stone, it really feels like you're punching stone. It's the sound effects, the little vibrations in the controllers. Like it really feels like it's very different to punch a block of stone than it is to punch mud or sand. Like you just go right through mud, for example, or in some worlds where there's fruit and you can punch through the fruit, and like those are soft materials. But then you punch a rock and it's hard. You feel that impact, the sound, the vibration, and it feels so real and so like it's so genuine. And then that also applies to even between different hard materials, and you can still tell some differences. Like there's the forest layer where you have trees and a lot of wood. The wood is a different material from stone, and it's also hard to break. It still takes a few punches to break through a bunch of wood. And you would think it's kind of similar, but the sounds and the vibration is slightly different. And then the way that it splinters, it behaves more like wood. The way that the wood breaks apart, you see all these little bits of wood in the air, and like it feels different. It doesn't just feel like stone. Everything in this game feels so tactile, and so it always feels like you're doing it. In a way, you're just. It's so satisfying every time to see the reaction of a new material to what you're doing and how you can destroy it. This underpins the entire experience, and it's so brilliantly executed. This is the thing that makes this game as good as it is. Just how satisfying they made it to just destroy everything. It's so much fun, and it never gets old. It is so impressive. But beyond all of that, there is a structure to the game as well. And there's missions, and of course you have to find the bananas. There's enemies, there's boss fights, there's things you have to conquer, and it all plays into this thing with the materials. You have to sometimes find the right way to make an enemy weak to your attacks. An enemy might have lava elements, and you have to throw ice at it to make it destructible because you can't punch lava, but if you throw ice at it, it becomes rock, and then you can punch through it, things like that. There's a lot of things that play into the elements here and how the materials affect each other. And it's also very creatively done. It also, there's a lot of variety with the enemies and everything. There's a lot of enemies that are just the same model of sorts, but they come in all different materials, and so it becomes about figuring out the best way to destroy each of the different materials. Like it's really like the enemies aren't super complex or anything too crazy, but it really plays well into that idea of the materials, and it's really really fun to also just smash through enemies and punch them and destroy them and watch them explode. It's really really fun. I think one of the things that people consider a downside are the boss fights, which I can kind of see. The boss fights are a little bit too short and a little bit too easy most of the time. Like the game isn't overly challenging when it comes to the boss fights, and that is a bit of a shame. I think a lot of people wish it was just a little bit harder, lasted a little bit longer, so the boss fights left more of an impression. But I don't think that's a huge issue. I don't think it ruins the game really. It's not like Super Mario Wonder where it really did get very repetitive and it was the same every time. Here, there's a lot of variety to the bosses, and they feel really grandiose. Like all of these boss fights are pretty big. The enemies are big guys, and it feels really satisfying to punch them and destroy them. So it's still very engaging and very fun to do all those boss fights. It is just a little bit too easy, I guess, for a lot of people. But again, it's the exploration here is really what makes this a lot of fun. The fact that you can destroy everything gives you all new avenues for finding new things. With the moons in Super Mario Odyssey, there are pretty well-defined ways in which you obtain them. And here, of course, everything is still defined, but you have so much more freedom, and it's always satisfying to make progress because a lot of the time, all you need to do is just smash through something, and you'll find a banana at the end of it. Like there'll be a hallway you discover, and there's a banana at the end. Like there's all sorts of challenges you can do to find bananas, and it's never really boring. I think the most boring ones would maybe be like the cranky Kong rants that you you have to listen to every time. It's just is a little repetitive with those, but like everything here is very very fun. Getting the moons never feels really boring, and not only because there's a lot of moons scattered throughout the world, a lot of hidden moons, but I'm saying moons, but I mean bananas. But a lot of the bananas are also rewards for completing challenges, which is how this game integrates more challenging aspects of platforming or combat. So every now and then you'll enter these rooms where you either have to beat a certain number of enemies in a very limited time, or challenge rooms where you have to platform. There's one that is a very clear throwback actually to the Donkey Kong Country games, with all the visual style and all of it in 2D. It's very cool to see that kind of love letter to those games because they are fantastic. But yeah, there's a lot of challenge rooms. There's platforming. There's these challenges where you have to destroy a building, or as much of it as you can in a limited time. And the faster you do it, you might be able to get an extra banana for it. So that's also really really cool. And yeah, those are actually pretty challenging sometimes to get the second extra moon that rewards you for being fast. That takes a bit of thinking. You have to use your abilities very well and very thoughtfully to destroy as much of the building as you can in as short a time as possible. It's pretty cool. So yeah, the game, the boss fights may be a little bit easy, but there are definitely things here that are challenging, and that will require some thinking. As much as it is just about punching everything and destroying everything, there's a lot of thought that you need to put into things sometimes to be able to do it effectively and to get all the on the bananas that you can. It's not an overly easy game across the board. Just the boss fights, I think people wish would be a little more grandiose in terms of difficulty. I don't think it's a huge issue again. I think they're still very fun. The best way I can summarize this is that I have not had this much fun playing a game for so long in a very long time. Like, every second that I am playing Donkey Kong Bonanza is so much fun. Like, I can always find something that I find fun. Like, even if I'm not sure how to find a specific banana or something, I'll just punch through everything. Like, it's fun to just destroy things. There was only one banana where I was a little confused as to how to get it. I actually ended up looking it up. But otherwise, it's just really easy to find a way to have fun. Even if you're not sure what to do, you start punching through things. Or later on in the game, when you have all the abilities, there's one that makes things really easy to like destroy the environments. And yeah, like it's just fun to see the world being shaped to something completely different. And that's also like super impressive, because there's this thing with like, a new generation comes out, and especially that's very prevalent now with the transition from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5, where like, it's very rare that you see a game where you feel like this couldn't be done on the old console. Like, and most of the time when you see that, it's just about like loading times, maybe like something like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, like how fast those worlds load in those transitions between portals. Like, that's the only thing that really makes that game feel like a PlayStation 5 game. Here, it's very, very obvious that Donkey Kong Bonanza's vision could not have been done on the original Switch. At least that's how it feels to me. Like, even though it started development for the original Switch, I don't think it was possible to have this vision be delivered properly on the original hardware. And that's because of that world destruction, how powerful it is. Like, this game, it targets 60 FPS and it mostly sticks to it, but there are a lot of slowdowns in more intense moments. And I can definitely see how if it was on the original Switch, the Switch would explode probably, because the way that the world morphs. So Nintendo is doing something here they're using something here called voxel technology. And so voxel is like the 3D equivalent of a pixel. So, a pixel is a square that, and the millions of pixels make up an image. Voxels are a three-dimensional version, so it's a cube, and the cubes, all connected, make up the world. So, typically a game would use polygons, and it grafts, the outside of, everything you see to form those images. But that's it. And then if something is destroyed, it just generates different polygons to create the new objects that are then in the image. With voxels, like, everything is destructible. So you have all of these structures that are smashable, and the game just generates so many particles. Like, even though they're cubes at their core, they're still, skinned in a way that makes them look, more unique. It's not just a cube. It's not like Minecraft. But everything is comprised of these cubes, and everything is so destructible. So you constantly have these cubes coming off of the surface, and it's like there's all of these particles flying off from the things that you're destroying. And some materials are explosive too. So like, there's always so much going on with what can be destroyed, and all these things flying off of the impact zones and things like that. Like, there's so much going on in this game. All of the things that you can manipulate as you destroy the world. It is so impressive, and it's so easy to see how like this was not doable on the Switch. It's actually interesting because Super Mario Odyssey did use voxels for one or two specific instances in the game. There's snow in one of the worlds, and they had voxels used for like how the snow would be deformed as you walked across it. And there was these cheese platforms in the Luncheon Kingdom, where you could destroy blocks of cheese and uncover secrets that way. But those were very localized, very specific areas that were only used, very sparingly. Having the entire world made of these blocks that you can always destroy and make all kinds of particles fly around and everything is, so fluid. I could not imagine how this game, with the vision that it has and the experience that it provides, I can't see how something like this would run on the Switch. I really can't. And it's really impressive because, like, again, it's hard to make a game nowadays that feels like the vision, couldn't be delivered on the previous platform. And it could, you'd have to downgrade the visuals or something, but the vision, of a PS5 game could easily be executed on the PlayStation 4. Uh, Donkey Kong Bonanza doesn't feel like that. It's, partly because the Switch was so underpowered as well. But yeah, like, I don't think you could make Donkey Kong Bonanza as fun as it is on the Switch. It just couldn't. So that is really cool, and that's why I say that, like, Donkey Kong Bonanza is one of the few games that truly feels like a next gen experience, even if the graphics aren't, anything crazy visually. Uh, it does really feel like something that couldn't be done before. To wrap up, I'm just gonna touch on spoilers for a bit here, and these are big spoilers, so if you don't want to watch everything, if you don't want to be spoiled, you're gonna have to skip this part. But the final sequence in this game is absolutely incredible. So, spoilers start now, by the way. I did not know that King K. Rool was gonna be in this game. I guess it probably came out at some point. I didn't see it until I was playing it. So, like, the entire game, I thought the main antagonist was just the Void Company and Void Kong. And then you get to the end and you fight Void Kong and you beat him and you think, oh, that's done. Nice, I finished the game. And then suddenly, like, the Bananium Root, what they think is the Bananium Root, turns out to be King K. Rool's belly. And he wakes up and he suddenly becomes the final boss. Like, it tries to get his hands on the Bananium Root to get his vision. And then you're at the Bananium Root and you make your you beat him in a fight initially, and then you get the Bananium Root and you make your wish, and your wish starts coming true. Pauline wishes to go to the surface. You wish for bananas, and then you get this pile of bananas that is, like, rocketing from the planet core up to the surface. So you both get your dreams at the same time. But then King K. Rool is still alive, and he is, like, I've always seen or thought of King K. Rool as more of a goofy villain, more like Bowser. I'm not super familiar with it because the games I've played are actually Returns and Tropical Freeze, which have new enemies. So I've never really seen this side of King K. Rool where he is insane in this game. He's crazy. And at the very end, it turns into this King of Rot form where he uses, like, banana mush to become this abomination. He's so deranged and evil, and it's crazy. I did not know King K. Rool like that. And it's awesome. Like, the whole sequence from the final Void Kong fight to everything King K. Rool related until you finish the game is absolutely insane. Like, it's crazy how intense that whole section is, and it's super fun. The final battle is really, really, really rewarding. I would say that's where it really peaks. Like, the difficulty, people complain about it throughout the game. I think the final boss really is a very well executed one. It's challenging, it's intense. Like, it's very good. It's just amazing. It's an amazing final sequence. Super intense, super fun, and yeah, it's just awesome. You get to go to New Donk City. You see New Donk City in a different context than it was, in Super Mario Odyssey. Like, everything here is amazing. Like, the final sequence of this game is absolutely incredible. If the game wasn't fun enough until this point, the finale really makes it worth it. So, absolutely fantastic. And also, after you finish the game, that credits song really, really goes hard. And Nintendo doesn't do a lot of lyrical pieces for their main franchises, surprisingly. They did Super Mario Odyssey. They had, Jump Up Superstar, and they had this other one that I actually like more, but I forget the name of, that plays during the final escape sequence in Super Mario Odyssey. And that I love that one too. But this one, the Kong breaking through, you kind of heard it in the trailer, in the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct. It is so good. It feels like it's straight out of like a Disney animated movie. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not going through it enough. But it really feels like it's coming out of a Disney animated movie. And it's so good. The vocals are amazing. The entire song is beautiful. I love how that song sounds. And I love there's a little intermission after the chorus where it just is a throwback to the title theme on Donkey Kong Country. Like it's played slower and a little softer. And you know, Pauline is singing over it. But it's a beautiful throwback too. Like it's fantastic. And also speaking of music, the Zebra Bonanza theme, like the Zebra Bonanza, you saw that in in the trailer, so I don't count that as much of a spoiler, but Zebra Bonanza theme is very, very good. It kind of gives me some Portuguese vibes. I don't know if I'm just crazy, but like that sort of festival theme it goes for, it feels a little bit Portuguese, or maybe even more so Brazilian would be a good fit for it. I don't know, but it feels very like home almost. So yeah, I I really like that one too. But yeah, those were some sort of incoherent ramblings about Donkey Kong Bonanza. I wasn't really sure what to say. I just really wanted to share how fun this game is. Really wanted to talk about that. So my thoughts are a little scattered here, but I love this game so much. It is one of the best Nintendo games ever. Um, Probably the best Donkey Kong game ever. I don't know. Tropical Freeze is also absolutely fantastic. Bonanza is obviously the best 3D Donkey Kong game ever. You know, considering the competition is only Donkey Kong 64. But yeah, Bonanza is an absolutely fantastic game. Just terrific all around. Everything about this game comes together so well, and I love it. And I don't know if you have been thinking that you know the Switch 2 isn't worth it or something, or that you know there isn't a selling point for it yet, then Donkey Kong Bonanza is it. Like this game is absolutely fantastic, and this is the reason to buy Switch 2. It just is. Like if Mario Kart World didn't convince you, which I do think Mario Kart World wasn't the best selling point for a Switch 2, then Donkey Kong Bonanza is it. It just is. So yeah, fantastic game. Absolutely recommend it. Absolutely love it. I finished it and I kind of wanted to keep playing it, and I can't because I want to play other games too. But I kind of just want to keep punching things. It's so much fun. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.